those committees are people who are the ones who most support these intelligence committees. It was run in the Senate for years by Dianne Feinstein. Her husband was a military contractor. She was embedded in these agencies. She defended everything that they did. The one time she questioned them, which was when she wanted to investigate the use of torture in the CIA, John Brennan, CIA, spied on Dianne Feinstein and on her entire staff. He got caught doing it. He lied and said he didn't. He finally admitted that it was done. He apologized and there were no repercussions. Like, let's bygones are gone. Go Google John Brennan spying on Dianne Feinstein.
I'll never forget it. And when that story first broke, it was years ago. It was at least 10 years
ago. It was under Obama. He was CIA director under Obama.
And I remember thinking, I don't think the CIA would ever dare spy on the Select Committee, on the Senate Oversight Committee of the CIA, of the intel community. I mean, I can't imagine they would have the balls to do something like that. That's insane. But I had no idea.
And they did it on somebody who was one of their blindest loyalists. The one time she stepped a little bit out of line because she wanted to investigate exactly what happened in the torture
program. At that point, like, why did people put up with that? I mean, I guess Frank Church did die of incredibly fast-acting cancer. So maybe that's why. I mean, people must be afraid, because you'd think out of 535 with the Senate, there'd be somebody who's like, this is not democracy. This is totally immoral. Like, I'm going to just stand up and take them on. Like,
but Tucker, just let's say that, people had things on you that would, as you put it, destroy your reputation, make your kids think very poorly of you, embarrass you for the rest of your life, or destroy whatever you value in life. It takes a very rare person to say, F it, I'm gonna risk that happening. I think we have this self-preservation tactic. That's why those kind of things like blackmail, extortion are so effective, is because they can force people to.
No, I think you're right.
Look at how much these sexual misconduct allegations are used. When Julian Assange really got dangerous, suddenly out of nowhere appeared two women claiming that he quote unquote raped them, because the allegation was they had consensual sex with him, but he didn't use a condom when they had not given their consent to no condom, and that became rape under Swedish law. That's what forced him to the Ecuadorian embassy and led to everything that happened subsequently. Now with Matt Gaetz, the minute Matt Gaetz, Pete Hegseth too, out of nowhere appears this alleged rape that nobody had heard about, that nobody knew about. It's always, the thing that always amazes me, this is actually the best example, in case anybody thinks, oh, our government doesn't do that. When Daniel Ellsberg leaked the Pentagon Papers to the New York Times and the Washington Post, and I remember when I first heard about this, I was kind of confounded about why this happened. Obviously, they were saying the normal things you say about people like that, like, oh, he's a Soviet asset, he hates America, he put troops in harm's way, because he showed the public that the government was lying for years about the Vietnam War. Inside, they were saying we can never win. Externally, they were saying we're on the verge of winning. But what they also did, and it's the only reason Daniel Ellsberg ended up free, is they broke into his psychoanalyst office because they wanted to steal all the documents about his most intimate admissions to his psychoanalyst about his psychosexual life and fantasies, because that was the weapon of choice that they wanted to use to destroy him. That's a fact. The Nixon administration broke into the psychoanalyst office of Daniel Ellsberg when they couldn't find the documents. They planned to break in at the guy's house, and they finally put a stop to that. But they did break into a psychoanalyst office, and only because of that government misconduct did the judge dismiss the charges against Daniel Ellsberg, who otherwise was headed to prison for the rest of his life. Why would that be a response to a whistleblower revealing to the press that then revealed to the public that the government was systematically lying about the Vietnam War? It's because if you can have that information over somebody and then use it against them, you destroy. I remember when that happened with Julian Assange. No one wanted anything to do with Julian Assange anymore. No one wanted to mention his name. It's just like, ooh, this person's guilty of accused of rape. I just don't want anything to do with that. So if you could have shown that Daniel Ellsberg had this fantasy or had done this or had done that in the intimacy and privacy of his own life, everybody would have wanted to avoid it.
It's totally true. Did you ever find yourself on the wrong end of any of that, since you were very high profile?
I mean, I think the important thing is that if you want to confront the government, if you want to spill secrets, if you want to bring unwanted transparency, which happens to be the job of a journalist. I know people forget that, but that is the job of a journalist. If you go into journalism, that's what you're supposed to try to do. You have to, as best you can, guard against that. Like, you have to protect yourself, make sure that your own house is in order as much as possible, because that will be a huge vulnerability. But as I said before, everyone has things to hide. There's no one who doesn't.
100%. And it's also true that if you get really attacked in a scary way, you don't want to talk about it. I mean, I feel that that has happened. Not sex stuff, but I've definitely felt a lot of pressure, and you don't want to,
It's not just sex stuff. Yeah, there's
not
all sorts of things in our past that we do that we're
But
embarrassed
you
by.
ever worried the intel agencies would try and hurt you?
Yeah, I mean,
Don't question.
here's the thing. Like, I think a lot of people remember, but my husband, who's now deceased, but at the time, he went to Germany because there was a part of the archive that was corrupted, and we knew there was a lot of
Yes,
important
I
documents
remember.
there. And it was with Laura Poitras, and she, using her genius, had figured out how to access it. No one else could. But she didn't trust anybody, including the Guardian, to give it to me, to bring it to me. The only person she trusted was David. I couldn't travel outside Brazil because there was a concern.
What is
that I'd
he
be
doing
arrested
to
by
the
US.
cone, man?
First car sales.
What
Buying
the
a car
fuck?
made better.
What are you doing to that
So I
cone,
had to stay in
man?
Brazil. So only David could go and get
Oh
those
my
documents. And the way
god.
we talked about it was in a very secure, secret way. We're using the
Fucking
highest level of
dying.
encryption at the time that Snowden insisted on.
Get off that cone
And
like
when
that,
David went to
man.
Germany, he came back home through Heathrow.
That
and at
cone has
Heathrow, the
rights
British
too.
Arrested him and detained him and threatened to prosecute him under an anti-terrorism law. And the only reason they let him
Ow.
out was because the Brazilian government, it became a huge story in Brazil. The Brazilian government was like, give us back our citizen immediately. And so they let him go. And then David sued
What the hell
the
you doing?
British government over human rights abuses because they were detaining him for journalism. And the British
You're
government
running away.
said in their papers,
You ain't
when
getting
they
away with
defended their
this.
actions,
I
we
saw
knew
what you did to that
exactly
cone,
what he was
man.
doing in Germany. We knew exactly what he was carrying, and that's the reason why we detained him, because we wanted to prevent this
The cone ain't gonna be right.
from getting out into the public.